In this video, I'm going to teach you how to factor trinomials when the leading coefficient is 1. Now, popping up are the trinomials that we are going to look at in this video. I'm going to show you how to factor these trinomials step by step. Now, one of the problems I have noticed when asking students to do math problems is that they don't know how to begin the problems. By knowing the procedure of how to do the problems, it makes it a lot easier to do the problems because you know exactly where to begin working with the problems. Now, it's really important to remember the procedure, and the best way to learn it is to write down the procedure as many times as needed to remember. By knowing the procedure will make it a lot easier to factor these trinomials. So let's look at this example right here. We have x squared plus 14x plus 48. Okay, so this is a trinomial because it's a polynomial with 3 terms. You got term 1, 2, 3. So it's ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, a is 1, which is the coefficients of x squared, the leading coefficient. Okay, I'm going to show you how to factor this. We have a procedure of how to do it, and it's really simple, and we're going to go through it step by step. Okay, here's the procedure. We have step 1, 2, 3 to get it done. So step number 1, it says to find the factor of constant c. So constant c, if you look at these terms, you know it's ax squared plus bx plus c. So your constant c is going to be 48. Okay, so we're going to write that down. Constant c is 48. That's step number 1. Step number 2, it's to find the factors of c, meaning two numbers multiplied to get 48, whose sum is b. When you add those two numbers, it comes out to 14. So your b is 14. That's your b. Okay. So you're basically doing guess 2 factors and then check it. And if you're lucky, you get it right the first time. So think of factors of 48. Can you think of factors of 48? Two numbers that multiply to get 48. But when you add those two numbers, it comes out to 14. Well, how about, let's try 6 and 8. Let's see if it works. Well, 6 times 8, we know it's 48. And then 6 plus 8, well, that's 14. That's what we have for b here. So 6 and 8 are the two numbers we needed to make it work. Okay, so that's step 2. Step 2 is to come up with those two numbers. And then step 3 is rewrite the polynomial. This is a polynomial. It just happened to be a trinomial. It's just a special name for it, using these factors. So we have the factors of 6 and 8. So we're going to use these two numbers and we're going to put it in factor form. So it looks something like this. Okay, so it's going to be x plus 6. Okay, and then times x plus 8. So we have a positive 6, positive 8, so that means x plus 6, x plus 8. Okay, so that would be 2 factors of that trinomial given to you. Now we can always check it. Okay, we can check to see if this is right by multiplying these two binomials. Okay, and I'm going to show it to you down here real quick. Okay, so multiply the two numbers. So we have x plus 6 times x plus 8. Now we can multiply using the FOIL method or distributive property, or we can use the quicker way, which is the added and multiply. So I'm going to show you how to do this using the distributive property. So here we have to distribute the x. So here x times x, and then x times 8. So x times x is going to give us x squared. X times 8 is going to give us 8x. And then we're going to have to do the same thing with the 6. And then we're going to distribute the 6. So we have to take 6 times x. And then we do 6 times 8. Okay, so 6 times x is going to give us 6x. And then 6 times 8 is going to give us 48. Okay, and then we simplify. Simplify means you got to combine like terms. So it looks like we have ax and 6x. So we're going to have to combine those two terms. Okay, so what is 6x plus ax? Well, that's going to give us 14x. So we have x squared plus 14x plus 48. So now if you go back up top, looking at the original trinomial, x squared plus 14x plus 48, and down here, we got the same. Okay? So that's how we know that this is right. Now, a quicker way to multiply is to do the added and multiply. So let's take a look at, again, let's look at the two binomials we got. So we had x plus 6 times x plus 8. So if I were to multiply these two binomials, okay, I would go x times x. Okay, well, x times x is going to give us x squared. And then we have 6. We got to add it. So 6 plus 8 is 14x. Okay, so that's the added. And then 6 times 8 is 48. So we add it and then we multiply. So this is just a quicker way how to multiply. Let's try another one. Let's try x squared plus 7x minus 44. Okay, so this is a trinomial, and we're going to factor this going through the procedure. Okay, so let's look at the procedure. Okay, we got step by step of how to do it. It's really, really simple. Let's go ahead and try it. Okay, so step number 1. What do we do for step 1? Well, it says to find the factors of constant c. So let's look at the trinomial. You got x squared, which is ax squared, plus bx, plus c. So your constant c right here, it's going to be negative 44. So that's going to be your constant c. So we're going to go ahead and write it down here. Okay, so that's step number 1. Now step 2 is to find the factors of c, factors of negative 44, whose sum is b. That when you add those two numbers, it comes out to 7. Okay, so your b is 7. So let's think about those two numbers. What do we need? Well, since it's a negative number, we're going to need to come up with a positive number and a negative number, because positive times negative give you negative. So let's try. Okay, it's basically, you're basically doing guess and check. And if you're lucky, you get it right on the first try. All right, let's try. How about we try 11 and 4? And one of these has to be a negative number. Let's try negative 11. Okay, see if that works. Well, let's try it. So negative 11 times 4 Well, that's negative 44, so that's good. What about negative 11 plus 4? Well, we add these two numbers. Well, that's going to come out to negative 7. Okay, so how about we change it around? Okay, we change it around to, instead of make it negative 11, we'll make it positive 11, and then we'll make it a negative 4. And we're going to add those two numbers. So 11 plus negative 4, that is going to be positive a 7. Okay, so if you look over here, your b is positive 7. So this is perfect. So this is what we need, the two numbers. Numbers are positive 11 and negative 4. So that's step number 2. And then step 3 is to rewrite the polynomials. This is a polynomial. It just happened to be a trinomial. Okay, trinomial is just a special name for this polynomial using these factors. Okay, so we're going to use these two numbers and we're going to write it in factor form. Okay, so let's take a look at factor form. So that's going to be what? X plus 11 because it's positive 11. And the other one is going to be x minus 4 because it's negative 4. Okay, so this is your factor form. You would multiply these two factors. Now there are many ways to do that. You can multiply by using the Fourier method, or you can multiply using the distributive property, or you can multiply by add it and multiply. So let's try the distributive property. So we have x plus 11. We're going to check x minus 4. Okay, I'm gonna use the distributive property to multiply the two binomials. So first thing you gotta do is distribute the x, and then x, and then distribute the x with the negative 4. So x times x, we know it's x squared. X times negative 4, well, we know it's negative 4x. Okay, and we are going to do the same with positive 11. So distribute positive 11 with the x, and then distribute positive 11 with the negative 4. So 11 times x is 11x, and then 11 times negative 4 is going to be negative 44. Okay? So now we combine like terms. Looks like we have, there's no x squared term, so we have the negative 4x and 11x. So those are terms with x, so we can go ahead and collect those. All right, so what do we get when we collect negative 4x with positive 11x? Okay, what do we have, guys? So let's see, x squared. If you thought of 7x, you are right. So negative 4x plus 7x is, negative 4x plus 11x is 7x. And then we bring down the negative 44. Okay, so when we multiply the two binomials, this is what we get. Okay, let's see. We have the same thing. And yes, we do. X squared plus 7x minus 44. So this way we know that the two factors we have, the two binomials, those are right. Okay, so that's one way to check it. I'm going to show you another way to check it. It's just a quicker way to do it. All right, so let's bring the two. Okay, another way to check it is to add it and multiply. So let's bring it in again. So we have x plus 11 times x minus 4. So x and x, we know it's x squared. So the added is to take positive 11 plus negative 4. Well, positive 11 plus negative 4 is going to be 7. So we have 7x. And that's the added. And then we multiply. Positive 11 times negative 4 give us negative 44. So if you look at this, it's the exact same expression. And now we know it's right. Now let's go over another example. Let's take a look at x squared minus 13x plus 40. Okay, so here's another trinomial. And we have to factor this, come up with the two factors that when you multiply it, you get x squared minus 13x plus 40. Okay, so we're going to go through the procedure of how to do it, step by step. Step number 1 is to find the factors of constant c. So which one is your c? Well, here, your a is 1. A is the coefficients of x squared, so a is 1. Your b is negative 13, and your c is 40. Okay, so your constant c is a positive 40. So let's go ahead and write that down. Okay, so here's your constant c, positive 40. Okay, so that's step number 1. Step 2 is to find the factors of c, two numbers that when you multiply you get 40, whose sum is b. When you add up those two numbers, it comes out to negative 13. So negative 13 is your b. So now we have to do guess and check. Okay, if you're lucky enough, you can come up with the two factors on your first try. So factors of 40, think of factors of 40. What two numbers multiply to get 40, but when you add them, it comes out to negative 13. Now because you're adding to negative 13, you're going to need two negative numbers. Because negative times negative is positive. And then negative plus negative stays negative. So factors of 40. How about if we try 10 and 4, that's not going to do it. If we try 8 and 5, well, that may do it. So let's see, negative 8. We need two negative numbers, and then negative 5. Because negative 8, let's check it. Negative 8 times negative 5 is positive 40. What about negative 8 plus negative 5? Well, that's going to give you negative 13. Okay, so yeah, it's right here. And that's going to give you negative 13, and it's perfect. So that's what we need. So the two numbers, the two factors are negative 8 and negative 5. So that's step number 2. Step number 3 is to rewrite the polynomial using these factors. So we're going to use these two numbers, and we're going to write it in factor form. Okay? So that means we're going to write two binomials. So it's going to be x minus 8, because we got negative 8 as one of the number. What's the other factor? Well, the other factor is going to be x take away 5. So that's in factor form. Okay, so when you take x minus 8 times x minus 5, when you take x minus 8 times x minus 5, you're going to get x squared minus 13x plus 40. Okay, x squared minus 8x plus 15. So here again, it's a trinomial, and we have to factor this trinomial. This is a trinomial with leading coefficient is 1. Okay, so there's your leading coefficient. It's the numbers in front of x squared. That's 1. Okay, let's bring in the step how to do it, the procedure. Let's bring in the procedure step by step. So step number 1 is to find the factor of constant c. So which one is your c? Well, let's look. Ax squared, so a is 1, plus bx, so your b is negative 8, and then plus c is 15. So your constant c is going to be 15. Okay, that's your constant c. And we're going to write that down. C is 15. So that's step number 1. Now step number 2 is to find the factors of c, meaning two numbers that multiply to get 15, whose sum is b. So when you add those two numbers, it comes out to negative 8. So two numbers multiply to get 15. When you add those two numbers, it comes out to negative 8. So let's think of factors of 15. Okay, can you guys come up with the two numbers? Think about it for a minute. 15. We can go 15 and 1. That's not going to work because it's not close to negative 8. Okay, so 15 and 1 is not going to be good. How about 5 and 3? We'll go 5 plus 3. That's going to give you positive 8. But if we use negative 5 and then negative 3, okay, well, 5 times negative 3, well, negative 5 times negative 3 is positive 15. And then negative 5 plus negative 3, well, that's going to give you negative 8. Okay, and that's what we wanted. We want it to be negative 8. So this is perfect. So the two numbers that we're looking for are negative 5 and negative 3. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and use these two numbers and put it in factor form. Right, so it's going to be x minus 5. That's one of the factors. What's the other factor? Well, the other factor is just going to be x minus 3. Okay, so when you take x minus 5 times x minus 3, you get x squared minus ax plus 15. And you can check it. You can check it by multiplying these two binomials using the distributive property or the Fourier method or the added and multiply. Let's look at another trinomial. Let's look at 3x squared plus 30x plus 63. Get some really big numbers here. So your a is not a 1 here, as you can see. A is 3, b is 30, c is 63. But it looks like that we can reduce this. Okay, so we can break these down by taking out greatest common factor. So can you think of the biggest number that can go into 3, 30, and 63? Well, that would be 3. Okay, so what you want to do is pull the 3 out. So 3 is your greatest common factor, and so we're going to pull that out. So if you pull a 3 out, 3 times what is x squared? Well, 3 times x squared is x squared. And then here, 3 times what is 30x? Well, that's going to be 3 times 10x. And then 3 times what number is 63? And that's going to be 21. So 3 goes into 3x squared times. 3 goes into 30, 10x. And then 3 goes into 63, 21 times. So we can, if you look at inside the parenthesis, it's a trinomial when a is 1, because your leading coefficient here is 1. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and factor this trinomial, just like we did with the last 4 problems. So we're going to bring in the procedure of how to do it. So here's the procedure, step by step. Step 1, step 2, step 3. Step 1 is to find a factor of constant c. So what is your constant c? Your constant c right here is just 21. Okay, so that's going to be your constant c. So we're going to go ahead and write that number down. So that's step number 1. Step number 2 is to find the factors of c, 2 numbers that multiply to get 21, whose sum is b, but when you add those 2 numbers, comes out to 10. So factors of 21, when you add the 2 factors, comes out to 10. So let's think of those 2 numbers. How about we try, shouldn't be that hard, how about we try 3 and 7, because it's 2 positive numbers. So let's try positive 3 and positive 7. Well, 3 times 7 is 21, but 3 plus 7, what is 3 plus 7? Well, 3 plus 7 is 10. Well, let's compare it to the b over here. You got 10. Yeah, so 3 times 7 is 21, and then 3 plus 7 is 10, so that's perfect. So we got the 2 numbers. So we're going to use those 2 numbers, and we're going to put it in factor form. Okay, so we're going to bring down the 3, because 3 is still one of the factors. Okay, and then we have the other 2 factors, so it's going to be x plus 3, because of the positive 3, and then the other one is going to be x plus 7 because of the positive 7. Okay, so these 3 factors. Let's look at another trinomial. Let's look at this one, 4x squared plus 12x take away 40. Okay, so if you look at this trinomial, it's not, your leading coefficient is not 1, it's 4. But we can break it down. It looks like 4 is your greatest common factor. 4 can go into 4, 4 can go into 12, and then 4 can go into negative 40. So you can break this down by pulling our 4. So 4 is your greatest common factor, so we're going to pull a 4 out. And then we're left with x squared. 4 times what is 12x? Well, that's 4 times 3x. And then 4 times what give you negative 40? And that's negative 10. Okay, so 4 goes into 4x squared times 4 goes into 12x, 3x, and then 4 goes into negative 40, negative 10. So inside this parenthesis, you have a trinomial with leading coefficient of 1. So your a here is 1. Okay? So we're going to bring in the procedure of how to do this. And it's really important that you learn the procedure. And the best way to learn it is to write it down as many times as needed to remember the procedure. So here's your procedure. Okay, let's go through this step by step. Step number 1 is to find the factors of constant c. So which one is your c? Which of these coefficient is your c? Well, if you pick negative 10, you're right. So c is negative 10. So we're going to write negative 10 over here. So that's step number 1. Step 2 is to find the factors of C whose sum is B. So we have to come up with two numbers that when we multiply comes out to -10, but when we add those two numbers comes out to your B, which is a +3. So think of those two numbers. So you have -10, so you're going to need a positive number times a negative number to get negative. So you use -10 and 1. Well, that's not going to come close to 3 when you add. So that's not going to be good. How about we try 5 and 2? Okay, so 5 times 2 is +10. So one of these has to be a negative number. But we want it to be +3. So in that case, -2 would make sense, right? Because if you take 5 plus -2, well, that's going to give us +3. And that's what we need. We need a +3 for our B. So we came up with the two numbers, +5 and -2. So we're going to use those two numbers and we're going to put it in factor form. So over here, let's bring down the 4. Okay. And then we have a +5. So that's going to be x plus 5. Okay, what's the other one? The other one is -2. So we have to write it out as x minus 2. Okay, so these are the factors.